Hello and welcome to the, making sure my mic's working. Yes, it is. Hello and welcome to the Daily Edit. I am your host, Todd Middlebrooks. Today we're going to talk about color and perspective correction in Snapseed for architectural photography, also known as a picture that I snapped of my front door today. So stay tuned. So as we talked about in previous episodes, what you capture is not always what your eye sees. And that happened today. Here at the house, we had some guys show up to repaint our front door. And after they completed the job, I wanted to snap a photo to send to my wife and show her, the results of the painting. And quickly realized that what I was seeing was not what I had captured. And again, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's launch Snapseed, and I will go ahead and pull up the photo that has the edits. And once again, if we press and hold, we can see the before and after. And so that was the image. That was the image that I saw when I looked at the door, and that's what was captured by my camera on my phone. And that is not really what I wanted to send to my wife, because as you can see, the perspective is crooked. There's some yellowing at the top from shadows and light differences in the doorway there. And so I knew I wanted to make that image look like this, and that's what we're gonna do now. So I'll go ahead and revert to the original image, and we'll start with our edits. So the very first thing that I want to do is get the perspective accurate. And you can see, especially along the edges or where the trim of the doorway meets the brick and the brick meets the edges of the photo, that there is some distortion. And so to correct that, we'll go into Tools and Perspective. And again, the magic wand in the lower portion of the screen there is an automatic perspective correction, and it may or may not do a really good job at first. So we'll hit that, and you can see it did make some corrections, but the brick on the left and the trim where it meets the brick is still off a little bit. So with the perspective tool selected, you can see the up and down arrows and the left and right arrows, and that will enable you to adjust that perspective. So if I adjust down, I'm just dragging down on the screen, you can see, especially on the left hand side there, that straightens up that perspective. And if you look at the top of the image, as I drag to the left, that corrects the perspective there. Now what that'll do is autofill on the edges of the frame, and sometimes it does a good job depending on what's in the photo, and sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it did an okay job, but I think I still want to crop that before I go any further. So we'll go back to our tools, we'll go to crop, and in this case, I want to keep the original aspect for now. I'm just going to grab that top corner and pull it down. Maybe pull the bottom left up just a hair. And get it just right. And so you can see we're starting to get somewhere. We've got our perspective corrected for the most part. Looks like there may still be, and sometimes you got to go back and retweak at the bottom. The perspective looks just to be off just a little bit. And there we go, before, after, before, after. And these perspective issues come from just the angle at which the photo is made. So my camera was not held at the center of the door from the top to the bottom, or from the left to the right. And so it just requires a little bit of perspective correction. And so that's what we've done here. The next step is going to be just a little more tedious, because we're correcting only portions of the image and only specific portions within those areas. And so what we're going to do is we'll go to the tools, we'll grab our brush, and then we have options down at the bottom, 4 options for corrections that we want to make with the brush. In this case, we're going to select saturation, and then you see down here in the bottom you've got up and down arrows. Currently it's set to saturation plus 10. I want to go and set that to saturation minus 10, because what I want to do is remove the yellowing at the top of the image. I mean, this door just had a fresh coat of white paint put on it, and because of the shadow, the overhang of the front porch, it's got a little bit of shading and yellowing, and the light it looks like it didn't in person, so I want to correct that. So what we're going to do here is go in and pinch again and widen and zoom in on the image. And this blue inset shows where you're zoomed in on the image. And I'm just going to click the brush icon here. And I'm going to start removing. I'm just lightly brushing over the image and removing the saturation, which is essentially removing the color from the image. And again, we just want to do it in these areas where the yellowing exists, because we have brick. Amazon packages being delivered. Actually excited about that because it's new camera gear that's going to be great for this show. So anyway, side note. But you'll see this is just removing that yellowing, but you have to zoom in because you want it to be a really fine edit. Again, we do not want to remove the saturation from the brick because we want to maintain that color. But even in this window here, the reflection, we can remove a lot of that color. And we're bringing back that white, that discoloration that existed just from the change in light. Here we go. Come down this side here. Again, all of this is to taste. I'm fully desaturating it currently at -10. We could do it in stages if we wanted to at -5. I know -10 is the setting that works because, you know, I had already edited this photo, but it may take a little trial and error when you're first going through it yourself. And then down here at the bottom, there's some discoloration again, just because the materials are different. This stainless kick plate came out a little yellow. We'll modify that as well. And that looks like it's done a pretty good job. We'll pinch back out, take a look. Now I'll commit that change, and then I do notice that there's a little exposure difference between the top and bottom of the image. Hey, thanks Aubrey for the subscribe. Appreciate that. You'll notice we are live on YouTube today, a little bit different than before. So I would appreciate a like and a subscribe here so we build our audience on YouTube. So I do appreciate that, Aubrey. Let's go in and get our brush tool again. And this time we'll use exposure, and we'll bump it up. We'll try 0.7 on the exposure increase. And let's just see how that works. We're going to zoom back in. Okay, instantly I can tell that that's too much. And so I can go back down, pick the eraser, get rid of that exposure adjustment. I'm going to try a 0.3. And that looks a little better here. There we go. And again, that's to taste. We can see our before. That's the area that we've edited. We can see our before and after, our before and after. And that looks pretty good. We're going to do one more thing, because in architectural photography there's a lot of lines. It's typically buildings, cityscapes, photographs of that nature. And again, once again, it can handle a little more structure and sharpening and detail. So I'm going to add just a little bit of structure here and a little bit of sharpening, just to make those lines pop a little more, the grain in the door there. And the last thing I'm going to do is we're going to export this photo. Let me get back to the image here. Here we go. We're going to export this photo for Instagram, and I'll put it up on the Daily Live, the Daily Edit Live Instagram page. So we will go to the 5:4 aspect ratio and try to just kind of center that top to bottom. That aspect does not, there's not a lot of room around the edges of that, but that's a fairly decent crop there. Actually, I may bring it in just a little. May even get rid of the, no, I want the brick in there. Okay. And that looks pretty good. And we'll now export this. I'm going to save this as a copy. And once again, we'll put that up on the, that will be up on the Instagram right after this show. There's the Daily Edit Live Instagram. And that's all I've got for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we are weekdays at 5 p.m. So we'll be coming to you Monday at 5 live. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again for tuning in to the Daily Edit.